I was beaten to death with a brick. The last thing I saw before I died was the goddess Su Qingqing's family of 18 surrounding me, dividing up the 2 loaves of bread I had finally managed to find. Just this little bit of food, and you want to starve us to death? Trash, you might as well die. I collapsed to the ground, blood pooling everywhere. I just couldn't understand it. In that dog-eat-dog apocalypse, being able to find 2 loaves of bread had already cost me my life. Why did my mother-in-law still think it wasn't enough, and even strike with lethal force? Was taking care of their whole family still not enough? No, these aren't 18 people, they're 18 beasts. Ring, ring, ring. A phone suddenly started ringing in my ear, and I snapped my eyes open. What I saw was a familiar ceiling, with a comfortable temperature wrapping around my whole body, and the air conditioner displaying 26 degrees Celsius. This is my room. Didn't I die? I grabbed my phone and looked. March 21st. There were still 10 days before the apocalypse arrived. On April 1st, 2030, 2 supermassive planets collided less than 100 million kilometers from Blue Star. The shockwave caused global temperatures to soar. In my city, Luo City, the normal temperature exceeded 60 degrees Celsius, while tropical regions reached over 80 degrees Celsius. Humans get heat stroke at 35 degrees Celsius. What kind of concept is 60 degrees Celsius? Even dogs would die from the heat. This extreme heat lasted a full 30 days. Rivers dried up, plants withered, and more than half of humanity worldwide died from the heat and thirst. Power stations short-circuited and caught fire, causing a global blackout, and air conditioners went up in smoke and broke down on the spot. Even more terrifying, an unknown virus carried by those 2 planets also drifted to Blue Star. One was the zombie virus. The infected turned into walking corpses that only knew how to attack. The humans who had barely survived the extreme heat saw another half of them turn into zombies. The other was the evolution virus. Those infected would awaken various supernatural powers. In my previous life, I was accidentally infected by the evolution virus and awakened an extremely rare spatial ability. But this ability was too mysterious, and I only learned the most basic storage function. Before I could fully study it, I was beaten to death with a brick by my vampire mother-in-law. At the thought of this, my gaze turned cold. 18 ungrateful beasts. The grudge from my previous life. I will repay it tenfold in this life. I sprang up from the bed, pulled open the fridge, and my eyes went wide at the sight of the chilled Fato Taku happy water inside. I grabbed a bottle and chugged it down. So refreshing. I let out a long breath, feeling like my soul was ascending. During those 30 days of extreme heat in the apocalypse, aside from seawater, almost all inland rivers had dried up. Back then, let alone drinking water, you couldn't even get urine to drink if you wanted to. I downed 2 more bottles in a row, and an indescribable comfort spread through my whole body. Then I subconsciously sensed it, and a huge black hole space actually appeared before my eyes. My spatial ability. After being reborn, my ability was still there. I was so excited I almost jumped up. With this space, not only could I stockpile a huge amount of supplies, but I also wouldn't have to worry about them spoiling. This was practically a divine tool for surviving the apocalypse. I checked my bank card balance. 2,005,431.5 yuan. This was the compensation money from when my parents were killed last year by a rich second-generation drunk driver. It had originally been 2.5 million. But to pursue Su Qingqing, I had already spent more than 500,000. According to how things developed in my previous life, the remaining 2 million would also all be spent on her over the next few days. But in this life, I won't be stupid again. All 2 million will be used to buy supplies. But who knows how long the apocalypse will last? If it drags on with no end in sight, 2 million won't be enough to eat on, so I have to get more money. I took out my phone and started downloading all kinds of loan apps. 369, Dog East, Borrow Bar, Ugly Group. A search turned up dozens of platforms. I usually had good credit, so I could borrow over 10,000 from each platform, and in the blink of an eye, hundreds of thousands were deposited into my account. As for the interest, I didn't even glance at it. Once the apocalypse comes, who's going to come after me to repay the money? My stomach started growling. Ever since being reborn from the apocalypse, I hadn't eaten a single full meal. All the food I found in my previous life had been given to Su Qingqing's family. Thinking about it now, I was unbelievably stupid. With that food, what kind of woman couldn't I find? First, I'd better go eat a good meal and buy supplies while I'm at it. I went out and hailed a taxi. Driver, to Luo City Grand Hotel. Oh, that's a 5-star hotel. Young man, do you work there? The driver looked me up and down. No, I'm going there to eat. I leaned back against the seat. After experiencing a whole year of apocalyptic hell, and finally being reborn, I had to treat myself to a good meal first. Ring, ring, ring. My phone rang. Caller ID, Su Qingqing. Looking at those three characters, a wave of disgust rose in my chest. I hung up directly. The other party called several more times, and I got so annoyed that as soon as I answered, I cursed. Are you sick? Are you done yet? How did Brother Fong Luo know my mom was sick? A voice dripping with fake sweetness came from the other end. My mom just got out of the hospital, and I'm taking her to Luo City Grand Hotel for a meal. She heard me say you've always taken care of me, and she wants to thank you in person. Hearing the exact same words as in my previous life, I couldn't help but sneer. In my previous life, I believed her nonsense and rushed excitedly to Luo City Grand Hotel to meet her mom. On the way, I even specially bought bags and bags of gifts, thinking the other party was going to approve of me as her prospective son-in-law. And what happened? Their family of 18 only exchanged a few pleasantries with me while ordering food. Every time I wanted to bring up my relationship with Su Qingqing, they changed the subject. It was only when the bill came at the end that they hypocritically praised me for being young and promising. They said whoever married you would really be blessed. At the time, I thought the marriage was basically settled, so I happily paid the bill. And afterward, there was no follow-up at all. From beginning to end, they had just called me there to pay. That meal cost over 100,000. Even I had never eaten anything that expensive. And now they want to use the same trick again? Fine, I'll be right there. I pretended to agree excitedly, while inwardly planning how to deal with this pack of beasts. At the entrance of Luo City Grand Hotel, Su Qingqing hung up the phone, the corners of her mouth curling into a smug arc. She had brown curly hair and carried the latest LV bag. Her looks were a 7 out of 10 at best. At that moment, over a dozen relatives were gathered around her, looking around curiously, each one marveling at the 5-star hotel. Qingqing, is someone treating us? Don't worry, he'll be here soon. Su Qingqing brushed back her hair. Wow, Qingqing's boyfriend is so capable. We get to benefit today. He's not my boyfriend, he's just pursuing me. She put on an act of modesty. He only has a few million in savings, so I still need to test him more. Su Qingqing was a complete gold digger. She dreamed of marrying a rich second-generation heir and becoming a wealthy wife. But unfortunately, with her actual qualifications, she had no access to that circle at all. So she kept me on the hook as a backup while looking for someone better, maintaining her quality of life with me on one side, while waiting for a rich second-generation heir to fall from the sky on the other. Her mother, Li Dongmei, was just as snobbish. At that moment, she was proudly showing off to the relatives. Order whatever you want later. If he can't even pay this little bit of money, then he can keep dreaming if he thinks he'll marry my daughter. Don't worry, Auntie, we'll definitely test him properly. If he wants to marry Qingqing, shouldn't he first serve us elders well? I walked into the hotel entrance. Su Qingqing spotted me at a glance, and immediately forced out a sickly sweet smile, pinching her voice as she called, Brother Fong Luo, over here. She even deliberately brushed back her hair, pretending to be shy. In my previous life, seeing her like this made me feel indescribably happy. Now all I want is to smash her damned head in with one punch, but I held back. It's still a society ruled by law right now, and if I ended up in prison, it'd be troublesome once the apocalypse came. Qingqing, you're still as endearing as ever. I forced out a smile. What did Brother Fong Luo say? I said you're graceful and charming. Brother Fong Luo really knows how to compliment people. She smiled affectedly. Li Dongmei also came over with a beaming smile, looking kind and benevolent. This must be Xiao Fong, right? I always hear Qingqing mention you, saying you've always taken care of her. And he really has to thank you. I knew this was all fake. In my previous life, once I had no more value to them, she immediately turned hostile. In the end, she smashed me to death with a brick and even planned to use my flesh to stave off hunger. I'll take care of all of you in the future too. I smiled faintly. Beneath that smile was surging killing intent. Too bad today isn't the apocalypse. Otherwise I'd send your whole family off nice and neatly. Xiao Fong, there are a lot of us, so let's get a large private room. The group walked in with practiced ease to a private room with a minimum charge of 100,000 yuan. Then, just like in my previous life, they exchanged fake pleasantries with me, pretending to value me greatly, and asked me what dishes to order. I won't order. You can just order whatever you like. I smiled and waved my hand. Then I deliberately made small talk with Su Qingqing and casually brought up as if by accident. I heard red wine is good for beauty. The more expensive, the better. Really? Su Qingqing's eyes lit up. She had always thought she wasn't pretty enough to hook a top-tier rich second-generation heir. So it was because she hadn't been drinking red wine? Brother Fong Luo, you're so knowledgeable. I admire you so much. She feigned a coquettish pout. As soon as Li Dongmei heard that red wine could improve your complexion and that the more expensive it was, the better, she grinned from ear to ear and immediately called over the waiter. 1 bottle for each person. Let's all improve our complexion. Red wine that cost tens of thousands per bottle, 18 people, 1 bottle each. She didn't feel any pain at all, since she wasn't the one paying anyway. She even thought the wine was too cheap, afraid it wouldn't get rid of the wart on her mouth. In the end, the food and wine for this table came to 540,000, several times more expensive than in my previous life. As soon as the dishes were served, the group pounced like starving ghosts, grabbing food with their hands and chugging the red wine straight from the bottles. Watching this scene, I felt nothing but disgust. The timing was about right, so I spoke just like I had in my previous life. Qingqing, when are you planning to start dat? Feng Luo, why aren't you eating? Li Dongmei immediately interrupted me loudly, exactly the same as in my previous life. Not even 540,000 could buy one honest answer. I'm not hungry, you all eat more. I smiled meaningfully and said no more. Li Dongmei was delighted that I was eating less and went back to stuffing herself shamelessly. Of course I wasn't eating, because from the start, I never planned to pay. Having lived a second life, how could I still be such a sucker? So I didn't even touch my chopsticks, and I deliberately egged them on to order the most expensive wine. I didn't expect them to be even greedier than I imagined, blowing through 540,000 in one go. I'm going to the restroom. I stood up, walked out of the private room without looking back, and then left the hotel directly. 540,000. Let's see how you're going to pay that bill. I switched to another upscale restaurant and happily enjoyed a meal by myself. Before long, my phone rang again, Su Qingqing. I let the phone keep ringing without answering. That urgent ringtone sounded like the most beautiful symphony to my ears. The more frantic the calls, the better my food tasted. In the private room at Luoqing Grand Hotel, Su Qingqing was anxiously dialing over and over. Feng Luo had gone to the restroom and never came back, while the waiter stood nearby holding the bill. 540,000, even after rounding it down. Did it go through? Li Dongmei's face turned deathly pale. No one answered. No one answered. Li Dongmei's voice changed. He couldn't have run off, could he? That damned bastard. If he has no money, he shouldn't pretend to be rich. He's pushing us into the fire pit. She hadn't thought it was expensive when she was ordering, but now that it was her turn to pay, the sight of the 540,000 bill made her world collapse. Even selling her wouldn't be enough to cover it. The relatives panicked too. Wasn't someone treating us? Who exactly is paying? Everyone. May I ask what method of payment you'll be using? The waiter looked at them with contempt and quietly signaled the security guards not to let anyone run off. Su Qingqing's face was white as paper. She was just a junior office worker, earning a monthly salary of 3,000 and spending 30,000 on bags. Relying entirely on deceiving honest men to keep up appearances, where would she get any savings? In a panic, she called the other simps, but the moment they heard 500,000, they hung up immediately. Li Dongmei had even less, not a single cent. As for dining and dashing, they only bullied the weak and feared the strong. They dared put on airs with me, but when facing truly rich people, their knees went weak. Auntie, we have something to do at home, so we're leaving first. Seeing that things were going south, the relatives tried to slip away. Don't go. Li Dongmei panicked. You ate too just now, so at least pay for your own share. Why should we? You said someone was treating us, that's why we came. Exactly. Just now Feng Luo was obviously about to bring up his business with Qingqing, but you kept interrupting and made him angry. Why should we pay? The whole family fell out on the spot, blaming one another. Li Dongmei no longer cared about saving face and pointed at the relatives while shouting to the waiter. They ate too. Don't let them leave. Li Dongmei, you shameless bitch. We came all the way to the hospital to visit you. Several hot-tempered women got into a brawl with Li Dongmei and her daughter on the spot, and the scene was explosive for a time. After finishing my meal and walking out of the restaurant, I saw police cars speeding past with sirens blaring. What are those police cars going to do? I heard a family was dining at Luoqing Grand Hotel, and the person who was treating ran off. The whole family couldn't pay the bill and started fighting. It was quite a spectacle. I raised an eyebrow. Dogs biting dogs, how satisfying. I was full, had my fill of drinks, and had also enjoyed the show from my enemies. Next, it was time to handle serious business. There was now more than 2.6 million in my card. The first thing to hit in the apocalypse would be 30 straight days of temperatures above 60 degrees Celsius. At that temperature, ordinary apartment buildings would turn into steamers, and in my previous life, countless people were suffocated to death in their own homes. I don't want to experience that feeling a second time in this life. I went online and rented a factory building of more than 300 square meters for a monthly rent of $20,000, then contacted a refrigeration equipment company. I asked them to build a top-tier cold storage room with twice the normal standard number of refrigeration units. Sir, ordinary equipment can only go as low as minus 30 degrees Celsius. But we have a new product that can reach a minimum of minus 50 degrees Celsius. My heart leapt with joy. At minus 50 degrees Celsius, even when the apocalyptic heat wave arrived, the indoor temperature wouldn't exceed 30 degrees Celsius. Finish it within 3 days. That's too tight. Add more money. The other party changed his tune immediately. A project that originally had a 15-day schedule was forcibly compressed into 3 days, but the price also tripled. $20,000 per square meter, for a total of $6 million for 300 square meters. I only had $2.6 million in my card. Fortunately, for this kind of project, I only needed to pay 1/3 up front, with the remaining $4 million to be settled within a month. Within a month? The apocalypse would have arrived long before then. Who would still care about any breach of contract penalty? I signed the contract with the other party's manager, Wang Chong, at a cafe. Smiling, he flattered me. Mr. Fong, you're young and promising. Building such a high-spec cold storage room. Are you planning to store some valuables? That's none of your business. Yes, yes, yes. He nodded repeatedly, his eyes full of curiosity. Construction started that very night after the contract was signed. In the blink of an eye, my $2.6 million was down to only $600,000. And I still needed to buy food, water, living supplies, and a high-power generator. By the third day of the apocalypse, the power grid would collapse, and without electricity, the cold storage room would be nothing but a giant coffin. The money was far from enough. Tomorrow I had to mortgage my property and borrow some usury loans too. I wonder if men can get nude loans. As I walked home in the evening breeze, I passed a restaurant and heard several miserable cries from a cat. Following the sound, I saw a child grabbing a tabby cat by the tail and swinging it around. The cat cried out in pain, but the child only laughed harder and got even rougher. I hadn't wanted to meddle. But when the corner of my eye swept over the cat's tail, my pupils suddenly contracted. On it was a pattern that looked strikingly like lightning. My heart trembled. After the apocalypse, there was a mutated animal in Luocheng that struck terror into people's hearts. It was a female tabby cat that had awakened lightning powers and was known as the Electric Queen. It was as fast as lightning and specialized in hunting humans who were alone. Every time it killed someone, it would dig out the victim's eyes. Its methods were extremely cruel. Countless people had hunted it, and not a single one succeeded. It also held grudges fiercely. Whoever dared lay a hand on it would definitely be retaliated against if caught alone. Some said it was even more terrifying than zombies. But later, someone recognized it. Before the apocalypse, that cat had been kept by an elderly person who was my neighbor. After the old man died, it was often abused by the brats nearby, and one of its eyes was blinded that way. After awakening its power, the first people it killed were all those who had abused it. And that Electric Queen's most distinctive feature was a lightning-shaped marking on its tail. I strode over in a few steps, shoved the brat aside, and picked up the cat to inspect it carefully. Female. Her eyes weren't blind yet. I was overjoyed. This was a cat that would awaken lightning powers. With it, the problem of power outages in the apocalypse would be solved, and I'd also gain a powerful combat asset. A living generator. You little bastard. How dare you shove my son? A fat woman with a greasy mouth rushed out of the restaurant and pointed at my nose as she cursed. I frowned. Didn't you see your child abusing this cat? I saw it. So what? Kids are just playing around. He only kicked it a couple of times. He didn't kill it. The fat woman put her hands on her hips. I'm telling you, my son is hurt. If you don't pay up today, don't even think about leaving. I only pushed him away. He didn't even fall. So how could he be hurt? If I say he is, then he is. She started yelling loudly. Come on, everyone. Judge for yourselves. A thug is bullying a child. Is there no law anymore? The brat also joined in, pretending to be in pain and fake crying. I was so angry I laughed. Never had I seen such shameless people. It's just a pity that this wasn't the apocalypse yet. If I made a move now, I'd be detained. Otherwise, I'd smash that bitch's dog head in right now. Renovating the cold storage room. You old fat hag. If you keep spewing nonsense, I'll slap your mouth to pieces. Fong Luo knew that reasoning with people like this, who had no sense, was useless. He glared at them fiercely, then reached out and shoved the 200-plus gene fat woman back several steps. Then he strode away. A person who's about to die. I wonder if she'll turn into roast pig under the 60 degrees Celsius heat. Why you actually dared shove me? Just you wait. The fat woman was also the type who bullied the weak and feared the strong. Seeing that Fong Luo was so brazen and unruly, she didn't dare stop him again and could only keep making threats, telling Fong Luo to just wait. Fong Luo paid her no mind. What could a fat old woman do? Hook some sugar daddy to get revenge on him? He was in no mood to stay and eat anymore. Holding Dianmu, he headed all the way home, ordering takeout and some cat food on the way. Sitting on the sofa, Fong Luo held Dianmu under her forelegs and lifted her high up, examining her carefully again. She really was a female cat. Her fur was dark brown-black, and she weighed nearly 10 kilograms, quite heavy to hold. Her most obvious feature was a white patch at the end of her tail, shaped strikingly like a bolt of lightning. She was almost exactly the same as the rumored Dianmu. Thinking of the apocalypse, the thought of soon having a cat with lightning-type powers made Fong Luo excited. However, this cat was extremely fierce and held grudges over the smallest slight, so he had to tame her first. From now on, I'm your master, got it? Meow? Dianmu let out a meow, curling her tail around and covering her private area. It was as if she were saying, I'm a female cat, you know. Is it really polite to stare at my private parts like that? Fong Luo didn't understand at all and thought she had agreed, so he excitedly took out the cat food. Here, eat this meal, and you'll work for me from now on. At the sight of the cat food, Dianmu started munching away enthusiastically, meowing as she ate. Forget it, for the sake of the cat food, I'll go along with you. Thus, the man and cat reached a friendly agreement. The next day, Fong Luo left the cat at home and went out to get loans and raise money. His house was over 130 square meters, worth about 4 million based on housing prices in Luo City. The bank was willing to lend Fong Luo 3 million, but since he requested the funds be released within 3 days, the interest rate was 1 point higher than normal. Fong Luo didn't care at all. With the apocalypse coming, who was going to repay loans? After borrowing money from the bank, Fong Luo started looking into private lending. There were 3 relatively large private lending organizations in Luo City, as well as several smaller ones. But private lending carried even higher interest. Calculated by annual interest rate, they all started at 200, practically daylight robbery. And they all used violent debt collection. They weren't afraid you wouldn't repay. They were only afraid you wouldn't borrow. When Fong Luo arrived at one lending company, he saw a man who couldn't repay his debt. He had been beaten until he was covered in blood and flesh wounds. That'll teach you not to pay back money. Those people also sized Fong Luo up, as if telling him this was what happened if you didn't repay. But Fong Luo wasn't panicked at all. The apocalypse was coming soon anyway. Whether they could even survive was another question. Even if they survived and found him, he wouldn't be afraid. By then, one meow from Dianmu could electrocute them to death. Fong Luo borrowed from every private lender in Luo City, big and small. Unfortunately, when he asked whether he could get a naked loan, everyone rolled their eyes at him. In the end, he only managed to borrow a little over 6 million. Fong Luo felt indignant. Why couldn't men get naked loans? It was blatant gender discrimination. After tallying up his funds, adding the 3 million bank loan from before and his original 600,000, Fong Luo now had about 10 million. He didn't know whether it would be enough. By the time he finished borrowing money, almost 3 days had passed. Ring, ring, ring. After not going to work for several days, his department supervisor at the company, Chow Fong, called him. Fong Luo, not coming to work again today? Do you still want this job or not? Get to my office right now. Chow Fong was Fong Luo's boss, in her 40s, and despite her age, she was still full of lust. Seeing that Fong Luo was handsome, she wanted to sexually exploit him. She often made him serve tea and water. Whenever she had nothing to do, she would call Fong Luo into her office and make him massage her, hinting that if he agreed to her demands, he could get a promotion and a raise. Fong Luo had long since had enough. Go to work? Send your daughter over, and then I'll go. The apocalypse is coming. Who the hell is still going to work? Fong Luo hung up directly, leaving Chow Fong dumbfounded. Since when had Fong Luo become so tough? How dare he talk to her like that? Didn't he usually just swallow his anger? Chow Fong flew into a rage and kept calling Fong Luo, only to find that he had already blocked her. So, fuming, she began verbally attacking Fong Luo in the workgroup chat, and a pretty boy eager to lick Chow Fong's stinky boots chimed in as well. Fong Luo, you don't need to come anymore. Your team leader position is now given to Sun Jia. Fong Luo found it laughable. As if I care that much about some team leader position. He directly left the group chat. Tired after several days, Fong Luo lay comfortably on the sofa, holding Dianmu in his arms and petting the cat. There were only 6 days left until the apocalypse. Ring, ring, ring. Before long, Fong Luo received another call. It turned out the cold storage had been completed. Overjoyed, Fong Luo immediately went over to inspect it. The 300 square meter cold storage had 3 times the normal amount of equipment. The refrigeration performance was first-rate. Boss, what kind of goods are you planning to store? I have experience in this area and can help you fine-tune the equipment. Wang Chong was still intentionally or unintentionally probing what exactly Fong Luo planned to stockpile in the cold storage. Fong Luo glanced at him. Do you know why dogs don't catch mice? Because dogs don't eat mice? Wang Chong was a little confused, but Fong Luo ignored him completely. It wasn't until Fong Luo had walked far away that he realized Fong Luo was calling him nosy. You think I won't know just because you won't say? Wang Chong sneered at Fong Luo's departing back. The cold storage was finished. Next came stockpiling supplies and strengthening the cold storage's security. In the apocalypse, powerful zombies would appear. These zombies were extremely destructive, and ordinary houses couldn't withstand their attacks at all. Although Fong Luo possessed spatial powers, he hadn't learned any attack methods. So he contacted a security company and asked them to design a set of protective facilities for him based on his cold storage, and also to partition off several spaces for things like a bathroom and a living room. The security company's people immediately came to inspect the site. Mr. Fong, building a bathroom is no problem, but your cold storage has a major security risk and would be very easy to steal from, said Qin Hao, the captain from the security company. He didn't ask why Fong Luo wanted a bathroom built. In their line of work, they only handled the job and never asked the employer's purpose. What do you mean? Fong Luo immediately turned serious. Look here, behind this piece of equipment, there's a concealed sheet metal door. This door can be opened freely from outside the cold storage. And beneath this equipment, there's a special latch. So with the installation of specific wheels, it can be moved easily. At that point, people outside could come in whenever they wanted. Qin Hao pointed out the cold storage's flaw. He had previously been a special forces soldier and had extensive reconnaissance experience. Fong Luo was immediately alarmed, thankful that he had hired the security company to reinforce the cold storage. If this hadn't been discovered, then wouldn't anyone have been able to get into his cold storage? In the apocalypse, that would mean no security at all. There was no need to think about it. This had to be an entrance Wang Chong from the refrigeration equipment company had deliberately left behind. He had felt something was off from Wang Chong's look earlier. He must have seen that Fong Luo was spending lavishly and urgently needed this high-end cold storage, and assumed he was stockpiling some valuable supplies, so he wanted to break in and steal them. A surge of killing intent immediately rose in Fong Luo's heart. Thank you. Come back tomorrow to begin the construction. Fong Luo thanked Qin Hao. No problem, Mr. Fong. It's just that finishing the project within 3 days is a bit tight on time. I'll pay more. Oh right, sell me some weapons too. Fong Luo gave the security company 5 million and asked them to strengthen and reinforce his cold storage within 3 days. Because there were only 6 days left until the apocalypse, he also bought some weapons from them, such as daggers, stun batons, and riot shields. As for why he wasn't starting construction today, Fong Luo had his own plans. Next was stockpiling supplies. Once the apocalypse began, the first thing would be 30 straight days of temperatures as high as 60 degrees Celsius. In that kind of environment, if you went a day without drinking water, you'd basically be done for. Among the dead in his previous life, the largest proportion had died of thirst. So Fong Luo directly ordered 10 million worth of bottled water. Because he was buying in such large quantities, the unit price was much cheaper. Altogether, it came to about 20 million bottles, at 0.5 yuan per bottle. As before, he first paid part of the deposit, 3 million. Then came food. Chickens, ducks, fish, pork, beef, mutton, rice, flour, and all kinds of seasonal fresh vegetables. Fong Luo bought them all from wholesalers. In total, he purchased 5 million worth from 3 different wholesalers. And again, he only paid part of the upfront payment first, about 2 million. 10 million was spent clean in an instant. But he still had a lot of supplies left to buy, so he had to find another way to get money. The wholesalers delivered very quickly, especially the bottled water. Luo City had one of the country's top-ranked bottled water companies locally. The goods were shipped directly from the local area and arrived at the cold storage by evening, carried by several semi-trailer trucks. Boss Fong, your goods have arrived. Please sign for them. The lead driver, Wang Dazhuang, walked up to Fong Luo with a cigarette in his mouth. Fine, help me move them into the warehouse. We're only responsible for delivery, not unloading. Wang Dazhuang refused. But when I made the purchase, the boss told me unloading was free. Fong Luo frowned slightly. Then have the boss come unload them. Wang Dazhuang curled his lip and said with a smug look, if you want them unloaded, that's fine too, but you'll have to pay an unloading fee. Their convoy often did this. When they ran into people who urgently needed goods, they would make all kinds of excuses and deliberately refuse to unload. Most people couldn't afford to wait, so they had no choice but to pay extra unloading fees. By using this trick, he had already bought 2 apartments in Luo City. How much? Fong Luo didn't want to waste too much time. He was actually capable of storing the goods in his space himself, but using his space ability might arouse suspicion, and he didn't want to expose it yet. You've got quite a lot of goods, so 10,000. Seeing how straightforward Fong Luo was, Wang Dazhuang grinned and immediately named an outrageous price. Fong Luo's gaze instantly turned cold. These people were deliberately trying to rip him off. Unfortunately, Fong Luo had no time to tangle with these clowns right now. He had more important things to do. Otherwise, 10,000 yuan. Who knows whether you'll still be alive to spend it. Boss, you're generous. The moment he saw the transfer, Wang Dazhuang's eyes lit up, and he immediately led the others to move the supplies into the cold storage. After the unloading was done, Fong Luo did not leave in a hurry. Instead, he secretly hid inside the cold storage, as if waiting for something. Sure enough, in the middle of the night, rustling sounds came from outside the cold storage. Immediately after, the cold storage fixture that the security company had pointed out as having a security flaw earlier that day suddenly started moving. I saw something being delivered in here today. That guy was acting all mysterious, so it must be something valuable. Let's hurry and move it out. Wang Chong crawled into the cold storage through the hidden entrance he had set up in advance, followed by 3 burly men. Wang Chong was a habitual offender. In the past, he often took advantage of opportunities to build warehouses for people and tampered with their warehouses. Afterward, he would sneak into the warehouses again and steal valuable items. Because he knew the surveillance routes in advance and the entrance he set up was extremely well hidden, he had never failed and had made quite a lot of money this way. He had originally wanted to wash his hands of it, but Fong Luo's strange behavior aroused his curiosity again, and driven by greed, he set his sights on Fong Luo's cold storage. So he set up the hidden entrance in advance. Today, the person he had watching the place saw Fong Luo stockpiling several truckloads of supplies. So at night, he immediately brought people over. Take a close look and see what's in the boxes. Wang Chong instructed the burly men, who then began rummaging through Fong Luo's cold storage. Boss, it's all bottled water. Bottled water? Wang Chong frowned. How is that possible? That guy spent millions building a cold storage just to stockpile bottled water? What an idiot. Keep looking carefully. The group started searching again. But when one of the burly men walked behind a row of boxes, an icy dagger suddenly pressed against his neck, frightening him so badly he didn't dare breathe heavily. He looked at the other party with pleading eyes, begging not to be killed. But unfortunately, the dagger went straight through his throat. He didn't even have time to let out a scream before collapsing to the ground. Fong Luo's expression was cold. This cold storage was meant to ensure his own safety during the apocalypse. Yet these people had set up a hidden entrance in advance. How was that any different from trying to kill him? After being reborn, Fong Luo would never let off anyone who might threaten his life. With killing intent in his eyes, Fong Luo stared at the remaining men who were still searching around. There were 3 left. If he fought them head-on, he would probably have a hard time winning. So Fong Luo stayed hidden in the corner, waiting for the remaining men to separate so he could pick them off one by one. Before long, Fong Luo found another chance and killed 2 more of them. In the end, only Wang Chong was left. At this point, Wang Chong also realized something was wrong. The 3 men he had brought with him had all gone silent. The entire cold storage was utterly silent and eerie, as if some supernatural incident had occurred. Who's he? Scar. Wang Chong called out in quick, ragged breaths, but got no response. Suddenly, Wang Chong felt a chill on his back, as if a dagger were pressed against his waist. Stop shouting. They're all dead. A voice as cold as death itself sounded behind Wang Chong. He turned around trembling and saw a dagger covered in blood. Blood dripped from the dagger onto the ground drop by drop, making a dripping sound that, in the silent cold storage, sounded like the tolling of a death knell. It's you. Wang Chong followed the dagger to its owner. In horror, he discovered that the person who had killed his 3 companions was actually Fong Luo, the harmless-looking young man from the daytime. At once, dense beads of cold sweat broke out on Wang Chong's forehead. Why are you here? My cold storage. Why can't I be here? Fong Luo looked at the trembling Wang Chong, his tone incomparably cold. And you actually set up a hidden entrance in my cold storage. Tell me, would it be better if I stabbed you to death in one strike, or slowly sliced you into chunks of meat? Spare me, spare me. Looking at the scarlet blade held stiffly against his neck, Wang Chong was so frightened that he dropped straight to his knees. He usually only stole things in secret. Where had he ever seen a demon like Fong Luo who killed without blinking? He was filled with regret now. He clearly wasn't short of money anymore. So why had he provoked such a demon? Don't kill me. I can compensate you for your losses. 100,000? No, 200,000. Wang Chong tried to trade money for his life, hurriedly pulling out a bank card and begging Fong Luo to spare him. Do I look like I care about that little bit of money? Fong Luo's eyes were icy. How could he possibly leave himself such a huge hidden danger just for 200,000? And no, 1 million. I'll refund your entire deposit. Wang Chong hurriedly raised the offer. He had already seen the corpses of his companions lying nearby, and he had no doubt at all that Fong Luo would stab him to death as well. You seem to be just a manager, yet you have that much money? Fong Luo was somewhat surprised. When Fong Luo had signed the contract with Wang Chong earlier, he had learned about his identity. He was only the manager of that refrigeration equipment company, not the boss. This was all stolen before. Wang Chong gave an awkward laugh. He spilled everything about how he had previously colluded with construction crews to leave hidden entrances while building warehouses for others, then later carried out thefts. Hearing this, Fong Luo's eyes lit up, and an idea came to mind. Which warehouses? Fong Luo asked calmly. We participated in building most of the larger warehouses in Luo City, like Huiyong Supermarket, Luo City Grand Hotel, and Luo Shui Mineral Water Factory. Wang Chong immediately named several warehouses and cold storage facilities, all belonging to well-known local companies. He even had detailed construction drawings that could easily avoid surveillance cameras, which stirred Fong Luo's thoughts. With so many large warehouses, the value of the supplies definitely exceeded tens of billions. If he could secretly sneak in and load all the supplies into his space, then he wouldn't have to worry about supplies for the rest of his life in the apocalypse. No, not just one lifetime, but 10 lifetimes. Tell me all the layout plans and hidden entrances for these warehouses. Fong Luo immediately pressed Wang Chong. Wang Chong didn't dare hide anything and told Fong Luo everything in full detail. To make sure he wasn't lying, Fong Luo tied him up and first went to test one of the warehouses. Sure enough, there really was a hidden entrance, and the surveillance routes inside matched the drawings exactly, so he wouldn't be discovered at all. Fong Luo was even more delighted. However, he was not in a hurry to take the goods away. There were still 6 days before the apocalypse. If the police found some clues and traced them back to him, that would be troublesome. Boss Fong, can you let me go now? Wang Chong asked timidly, afraid that Fong Luo would stab him to death with one strike. Let you go? Fong Luo sneered. He was the one who had told him the secret of the warehouses. If Fong Luo let him leave now, then once the things in the warehouses disappeared, he would definitely guess it was Fong Luo's doing. If he spread the news again, countless people would probably come after him. Only a fool would let him go. Fong Luo stabbed him to death with one strike. Then he took out the man's phone and sent a message to his wife, saying that his crimes had been exposed, the police were coming to arrest him, and he was going abroad to lie low. Then he checked the balance in the man's bank account. Good Lord, over 30 million. This guy was really greedy. Even on the verge of death, he had only been willing to give him 1 million. Fong Luo didn't intend to take all the money. Instead, he left several million for the man's wife. That way, she wouldn't think too much of it, nor would she report Wang Chong missing to the police. Perhaps even out of fear of seeing the police, he pocketed the remaining 20+ million for himself. Fong Luo looked at the 4 corpses again. If the bodies weren't destroyed, it would be easy for them to be exposed and trigger a police investigation. After thinking it over, Fong Luo tried using his spatial ability to take them into the black hole space. He found that it worked. Previously, Fong Luo had also tried putting Dianmu into the space, but at that time it hadn't been possible. It seemed the space could only store dead things. After dealing with the bodies, Fong Luo also put all the bottled water into the space. Then he went home as if nothing had happened. The next day, the security company began reinforcing the cold storage. With more than 20 million in cash in hand, Fong Luo began purchasing supplies for the apocalypse. Over 20 million. Fong Luo first went to buy several large generators and fuel. Although he had Dianmu also needed to rest. While Dianmu was resting, the generators could take turns running. He wasn't some heartless boss who squeezed employees into working 24 hours a day. After that, he bought all kinds of tools, axes and shovels, daily necessities, toothbrushes, toothpaste, air conditioners, washing machines, computers, and game consoles, and a huge bed spacious enough for 10 people to sleep on without feeling crowded. People could still get sick in the apocalypse, so Fong Luo also bought a large amount of medicine, gan mailing, Dihuang pills. He also bought all kinds of clothes, suits, workwear, maid outfits, leather jackets, and leather shoes, loose leather whips, black stockings, skin-tone stockings, and durex. Start with 100 sets. Although the apocalypse would bring 30 days of extreme heat and everyone would wish they could go around naked, clothes would still be needed after the heat passed. After the apocalypse, Fong Luo felt he might need to travel far, so he also bought a civilian armored vehicle, a Dongfeng Mengshi. He had heard even the tires were bulletproof, so ordinary zombies probably wouldn't be able to break through its defenses. As for food, Fong Luo had asked around. The warehouses Wang Chong mentioned weren't short on food at all. After all, those supermarkets supplied the daily needs of tens of millions of people in Luo City. If anything was lacking, it was high-end prepared food, but that wasn't a problem for Fong Luo. He still had several million left unspent, so he directly called Luo City Grand Hotel. He ordered over $1 million worth of delicacies, steaks, red wine, lobster, and had them delivered to his home in batches within 3 days. The only thing left to prepare was weapons. He bought some weapons from the security company, but they were all ordinary daggers, riot batons, and the like, with limited lethality. After all, the apocalypse would produce zombies, as well as humans with superpowers, and his own spatial ability had little combat power in the early stage. Ordinary weapons would be hard to use against such people. If he were surrounded and attacked, he would have no chance of survival at all. There were still 5 days left until the apocalypse. After doing the math, Fong Luo decided to go abroad. Ding dong. Just as he was thinking, there was suddenly a knock at the door. Fong Luo went to open it, and standing outside was a woman with brown curly hair. There were several red scratch marks on her face. "What are you here for?" Fong Luo frowned at her. The visitor was none other than Su Qingqing, the scheming woman who had caused his death in his previous life. "Brother Fong Luo, why did you suddenly leave last time? I called you, but you didn't answer." Su Qingqing looked at Fong Luo with a pitiful expression. Last time, Fong Luo had left the hotel directly. When it came time to pay the bill, her mother Li Dongmei got into a dispute with their relatives, and the whole family ended up fighting. If she hadn't hidden behind her mother and used her mother's hefty body as a shield, her face would have been beaten to pieces. Later, the police came, and they were detained for a few days for disturbing public order. In the end, she promised to borrow money from her relatives. Only then was the hotel bill settled, leaving her with a debt of several $100,000. But how could she possibly have that much money to repay it? She had wanted to look for other suitors, but her previous admirers, once they learned she owed over $500,000, all stopped contacting her. Who would spend $500,000 for a scheming woman? So she had no choice but to come find Fong Luo and see if she could trick him into paying off her debt for her. "I'm busy with work," Fong Luo replied coldly. He was thinking about whether to use the same method he had used to deal with Wang Chong. Silently, and without anyone knowing, get rid of Su Qingqing. However, her mother probably also knew she had come to find him. If she disappeared, the police would definitely come looking for him. Forget it. Anyway, she wouldn't live for many more days. "Brother Fong Luo, if something happened to you, why didn't you tell me? I almost misunderstood you." Su Qingqing spoke in a coquettish tone, and even, quite unusually, hugged Fong Luo's arm and pressed it against her chest, something she had never done before. It seemed she was really getting desperate. Fong Luo sneered inwardly. "Now you know to panic? Where was this urgency when you were stringing me along before?" Fong Luo couldn't be bothered with her and just kept looking at his phone, while Su Qingqing kept chattering away tirelessly by herself. "Brother Fong Luo, your home is so neat. I like boys who love cleanliness the most. Brother Fong Luo, why did you buy so much food and even red wine? It looks very expensive. I want some too. I'm planning to use it to wash my feet." Fong Luo glanced at her. "Washington wash your feet?" Su Qingqing felt a little awkward. She had just said she wanted to drink some, and he said it was for washing feet. Didn't that mean she wanted to drink foot-washing water? "Brother Fong Luo, are you booking plane tickets? Are you going traveling?" Su Qingqing noticed Fong Luo booking plane tickets and couldn't help asking curiously. Brother Fong Luo, can you take me with you? I can take care of you, and I won't spend money recklessly. This time, you only need to book one room." Su Qingqing immediately said, even hinting that the two of them should stay in the same room. When the two of them had traveled before, they always booked 2 rooms. Su Qingqing was really going all out this time. Fong Luo glanced at her. To be fair, purely in terms of looks, Su Qingqing was indeed pretty. She had an oval face, and most importantly, a voluptuous figure. Otherwise, Fong Luo wouldn't have let her string him along. A thought suddenly popped into Fong Luo's mind, and then he grinned. "Sure, bring your mom too." "Ah, That's not good, is it? My mom is older, and her figure has gone a bit out of shape. Su Qingqing's expression stiffened. I mean, take her traveling. Really? Su Qingqing immediately became excited, thinking that Fong Luo really must have had something urgent last time, and that's why he left. Otherwise, why would he agree today to take both her and her mother on a trip? I'll notify my mom right away. Su Qingqing immediately contacted Li Dongmei. Li Dongmei had originally been full of resentment toward Fong Luo, but upon hearing the news, she instantly put on a smiling face. She already felt in her heart that Fong Luo would help them repay the 500,000. Fong Luo went to a country in Southeast Asia. It was close by, and second, public security was relatively lax, making it convenient for him to achieve his goal. Give me your ID cards and passports, and I'll book the hotel for you. Fong Luo said to Su Qingqing and Li Dongmei without giving anything away. The two of them had no suspicion at all and directly handed over their ID cards and passports to Fong Luo. Xiao Fong, I'm not in good health, so find me a better room. Brother Fong Luo, 2 rooms will do. Don't waste money. Looking at their ugly faces, a faint, almost imperceptible sneer flashed in Fong Luo's eyes. After booking the rooms and exchanging a few insincere pleasantries, Fong Luo then left the hotel. Under cover of night, he began asking around for places to buy weapons. After many twists and turns, Fong Luo finally found the weapons he wanted. Then he immediately booked a plane ticket and returned to the country. Abroad wasn't very safe. It would be bad if he accidentally croaked. Fong Luo didn't even go to the hotel. Although if he went to the hotel now, he could definitely sleep with Su Qingqing, Fong Luo found it disgusting. With the resources he had now, once the apocalypse arrived, what kind of girls wouldn't he be able to find? Campus belles, lolas, nurses, flight attendants, married women, young wives. Why bother with a scheming woman? Because of the black hole space, the weapons were not discovered, and he returned to the country smoothly. After getting home, Fong Luo received another call from Su Qingqing. Brother Fong Luo, where did you go? Why didn't you come back last night? Su Qingqing was a little worried and thought Fong Luo had run off again. But she went to ask at the front desk and learned that Fong Luo had booked the room for 5 days, which reassured her considerably. I have something to do. You two go have fun first. Don't worry about me. Sitting on the sofa and drinking red wine, Fong Luo replied perfunctorily. He had left Su Qingqing and her mother in Southeast Asia. He had also taken back their ID cards and passports. To prevent them from returning early by some other means just in case, he had even deliberately booked the room for 5 days to lull them into complacency. By keeping them there for a few more days, they probably wouldn't have any chance to return to Luo City before the apocalypse arrived. How laughable. Those two were still having fun, completely unaware of what was waiting for them. Southeast Asia has a tropical climate. During the apocalypse, temperatures there reached as high as 70 degrees Celsius. And with the chaotic public order, plus Su Qingqing having no money on her, she probably wouldn't survive there for more than 3 days. Thinking of the two of them crying and screaming for help, Fong Luo couldn't help but feel delighted. A few more days passed, and the security company called to say that the safety facilities for the cold storage had already been set up. Fong Luo immediately went over to inspect it. After the reinforcement and remodeling, the cold storage's windows and main door had all been replaced with special materials, raising the security by several levels. The walls had also been fitted with more advanced insulation materials. Even if flames were burning outside, it would still ensure that the cold storage wouldn't collapse, and together with the refrigeration equipment. After the apocalypse, Fong Luo's cold storage could be maintained at around 20 degrees Celsius, the most comfortable temperature humans can perceive. However, Fong Luo still kept his guard up. He carefully checked it over to make sure that, unlike Wang Chong, no one had installed a hidden entrance into his cold storage. With only 1 day left before the apocalypse, all the supplies Fong Luo had ordered had already been delivered. Now he had to make the final preparations, empty out the warehouses. 2030, March 31st. There was only one last day left before the apocalypse arrived. Fong Luo had already prepared most of the supplies needed for the apocalypse, and all that remained was to sneak into the major warehouses and seize all the supplies inside as the final preparation. Earlier, Fong Luo had already gotten the locations of several large warehouses, their hidden entrances, and the surveillance routes from Wang Chong. He rested well and built up his energy. Midnight, night fell. Fong Luo put on a helmet, got on the motorcycle he had prepared in advance, and started heading to the major warehouses. Ordinary malls and supermarkets generally started closing one after another after 11 p.m. And since today was Sunday and people had work in the morning, there were very few pedestrians on the streets at night. which made it even more convenient for him to act. The first target Fong Luo set his sights on was the largest local supermarket chain, Huiyong Supermarket. Huiyong Supermarket had the widest variety of goods in the entire city, from precious jewelry to fruits and vegetables. Its daily foot traffic exceeded 50,000, and every day it supplied food rations for 30% of the city's population. Luo City had a population in the tens of millions, so its stockpile was an astonishing figure. Following the blueprint, Fong Luo entered the warehouse through a hidden entrance and began looting supplies without restraint. First came the food. Huiyong Supermarket had to supply food for millions of people every day, and the food stored in its warehouse was measured in tons. He arrived at the refrigerated section. All kinds of frozen meat were piled up here. Chicken feet, duck feet, chicken legs. There were actually dozens of tons. Fong Luo took it all without hesitation. Fresh meat too. Beef, mutton, pork, all of it went into his haul. He remembered that during the apocalypse, when temperatures exceeded 60 degrees, all the meat stored in major supermarkets and meat processing plants spoiled and turned rancid. Even so, it still triggered countless people to fight over it. Fresh pork was practically something that existed only in dreams. As for seafood, there were prawns, crayfish, grass carp, mandarin fish, perch, as well as giant green lobsters and king crabs. Dozens of tons. Fong Luo's mouth watered. During the apocalypse, the world suffered from drought, and inland rivers had basically all dried up. If anyone had a single crayfish, even Marilyn Monroe would probably beg to join them for dinner. Eating only meat and no vegetables would lead to constipation and bad breath. So vegetables were indispensable too. Bok choy, napa cabbage, greens, chives, and his favorite potatoes and green peppers. He took all several dozen tons of them. Staple foods couldn't be left out. Rice, flour, rice noodles, alkaline rice cakes, dumplings. He took all of the hundreds of tons. Food was taken care of. Fong Luo then went to look at the beverages. In the apocalypse, how could plain water be enough? Iced happy drinks were a must. Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Wanglaji, Jinky Forest, and red wine of all kinds of brands too. By rough estimate, there were over 100 million bottles here. Enough for him to drink through his next life. He remembered that in his previous life during the apocalypse, a fat shut-in had stockpiled a few cases of cola at home, attracting multiple young women who flocked to become his maids. Back then, Fong Luo had been insanely envious. And now he himself had over 100 million. The apocalypse would last a month, so he had to have some snacks. Spicy strips, potato chips. After looting all the food clean, Fong Luo went to look at other daily necessities. Towels, toothbrushes, facial cleanser. This lace lingerie. Fong Luo had been planning to get himself a few pairs of underwear to change into, but discovered that the boxes next to them were all black stockings, white stockings, and dudas. Might as well keep them. What if he wanted to recruit a few maids later? He couldn't cook for himself every day, could he? That would be such a loss. There were also pots, bowls, ladles, and basins, and a huge bed that could fit 10 people without feeling crowded. He took everything. After dealing with Huiyong Supermarket, Fong Luo continued on to the next address. Using the same method, he sneaked in, knocked out the security guards, and looted supplies. In a little over 3 hours, Fong Luo had completely emptied out all the large warehouses in the city. The total supplies were worth over 10 billion. If it could be seen on the market, he basically had it. By the time he finished everything, it was already past 4 a.m. There were less than 8 hours left before the apocalypse arrived. Back at the cold storage, Fong Luo locked the doors and windows, took out a set of living supplies, and arranged his cold storage. A bed, bed sheets, TV, computer, PS5 game console, table, chairs. The place was like a complete home. For at least the next month, Fong Luo would be living here. After a tiring day, Fong Luo was somewhat exhausted. He set the startup time for the cold storage facilities, then hugged Dianmu, and fell fast asleep. 2030, April 1st, Monday. Clear weather, temperature 15 degrees Celsius. People wore coats and, as usual, dragged their weary bodies to work. At the same time, the morning news also reported a major theft case. In this city, goods worth over 10 billion had been stolen overnight from 5 large warehouses, and the method of the crime was extremely bizarre. The police were investigating, but no clues had been found for the time being. Some people who got up early and planned to go to the supermarket to buy groceries were all grumbling. All the vegetables were gone, so what were they supposed to eat today? At the same time, there was another news report on TV. It was predicted that at 12 noon, 2 large planets might collide at a location 100 million kilometers away from Blue Planet. People would then experience a brief flash of light, so everyone was asked not to panic. However, this piece of news did not attract much attention. As time passed bit by bit, Fong Luo slept soundly on the big bed, paying no attention to any of it at all. 2030. April 1st, 12 o'clock. Just as everyone was thinking about what to eat for lunch, a white flash suddenly streaked across the sky. The light was especially dazzling, making the sky, which was already in broad daylight, impossible to look at with the naked eye. Damn, what's going on? Lightning in the daytime too? This lightning isn't just 240V, is it? How can it be this bright? Idiot, didn't you watch the news? This is the light produced by the collision of two giant planets. Oh, does that have anything to do with my monthly salary of 3,000? Basically, no one took it seriously. Because there had been news like this before, everyone just treated it as something to watch for fun. But a few minutes later, the world began to change. Damn, what's going on? Why has it suddenly gotten hot? Didn't the weather forecast say today's high would only be 15 degrees Celsius? I'm even wearing a sweater. It's getting hotter and hotter. This has to be over 40 degrees, right? I feel like I'm going to get heat stroke. The news said it might be related to that flash of light just now, and that it would get better after a while. The weather became hotter and hotter. Even though it was only April, it was even hotter than August weather. Pedestrians on the street, whether men or women, couldn't help stripping off their clothes regardless of appearances, trying to reduce the stifling heat a little. The apocalypse descended, and at this moment global temperatures rose rapidly. At 12:03, in Luo City, a coastal city, the air temperature had unusually reached 45 degrees Celsius, and the number was still climbing continuously. 12:30, the air temperature directly soared to 65 degrees Celsius, and the concrete ground temperature exceeded 100 degrees Celsius. Even the stray dogs on the street were hopping as they walked. It was scorching on their paws. At this point, forget frying eggs, you could fry steaks with no problem. This wasn't happening only in Luo City. Even in northern cities, the air temperature was approaching 60 degrees Celsius. Snow had originally still been piled on the ground, but now it had all melted away. In tropical regions, the air temperature even exceeded 80 degrees Celsius. Faced with the sudden high temperatures, everyone was roasted like dogs for a time. The streets were in chaos. Whether people or animals, all scrambled toward shaded places, causing all kinds of stampedes. Meanwhile, Fong Luo was lying comfortably on a bed wide enough for 10 people, lightly snoring. With a shiver, Fong Luo woke up. TSK, Jianmu, you actually stole my blanket. I'm freezing to death. While fast asleep, Fong Luo was awakened by the cold. It turned out the refrigeration equipment in the cold storage was running. Fong Luo had set the refrigeration equipment on a timer to start automatically, and at the lowest temperature, so the cold storage was a bit too cold. Although it was 65 degrees Celsius outside, indoors it was less than 10 degrees Celsius. It looked like the apocalypse had already arrived. Fong Luo put on a coat, looked outside, and quickly turned the equipment temperature up. Then he poured himself a cup of hot milk to warm up. Feeling nice and cozy, he lay down on a big sofa. As expected of a sofa worth over 800,000, it was really comfortable. Fong Luo let out a comfortable moan. Then he took out his phone and went online to check. Sure enough, every website had headlines about the hot weather. The comment sections had already exploded. Damn this scorching weather, why did it suddenly get so hot? It made me go home early, only to find my wife at home playing cards with someone else. Boo-hoo. I was working construction, and while moving bricks, I realized the bricks were too hot to touch. My hands even blistered. Thank goodness for the heat. I was just on a date with my goddess, and the high temperature melted the putty on her face. I never expected my goddess to actually look like that. Gross. I was supposed to have my monthly exam, but the school announced a holiday instead. I love the heat. Could this be the end of the world? Should I stockpile some supplies? But it's so hot outside, I don't even want to go out and buy groceries. Will the end of the world affect my 3,000 a month salary? All kinds of voices were debating online. However, most people didn't take this sudden heat wave seriously at all. Instead, they treated it as a pleasant vacation. Only Fong Luo knew that this heat wave would last for a full month. By then, all rivers would dry up, and the world would become a living hell. Food would rot. A single bottle of water could make a group of people fight to the death. If people started preparing now, not so many would die later. Fong Luo sighed, but there wasn't much he could do about it. Even if he went out right now and shouted that the end of the world had come, no one would take him seriously. The only person he could take care of was himself. Grr, suddenly his stomach started growling. He was a little hungry, and only then did Fong Luo remember that he hadn't eaten anything since last night. So he began picking out food from his space, But since he couldn't cook, he had to choose something that didn't require any culinary skill. Fong Luo took out a hot pot set. As for ingredients, after much picking and choosing, he finally selected a few pieces of imported Japanese A5 grade Wagyu, original cut, along with Australian giant lobster and crab. The ingredients alone cost over 10,000, so they would definitely be great for hot pot. As for drinks, any bottle of red wine costing tens of thousands would do, not too extravagant. Outside, under the blazing sun and 65 degrees Celsius heat, everyone was busy searching for shade. Yet Fong Luo, inside a cold storage room that was only 10 degrees Celsius, wearing silk pajamas, was eating fragrant beef hot pot. If some chef ever found out that Fong Luo was using A5 Wagyu and giant lobster for hot pot, they'd probably be so furious they'd beat their chest and stamp their feet. What a waste of fine ingredients. I can't keep eating hot pot all the time. Later I'll have to find a maid to wash my clothes, cook for me, and so on, Fong Luo thought to himself. Ring, ring, ring. Just as he was enjoying his meal, Fong Luo's phone rang. The caller ID showed Su Qingqing. Fong Luo raised an eyebrow. That woman should still be in Southeast Asia right now, where the temperature was as high as 70 degrees Celsius. What is it? Fong Luo answered in an amused tone. Brother Fong Luo. From the other end of the line immediately came Su Qingqing's hoarse voice, panting heavily. Brother Fong Luo, where are you? The room rental has expired, and it suddenly got so hot outside. I can't take it anymore. Earlier, Su Qingqing had followed Fong Luo to Southeast Asia, intending to offer herself to him in exchange for him paying off her debts. But unexpectedly, Fong Luo said he had something to do and left, after paying for 5 more days of her room. He told her to enjoy herself. She had been a little happy about it. Because she didn't have to sleep with him, she could keep her first time and use it later to hook a rich second-generation heir. During those 5 days, she took her mother around sightseeing and had a wonderful time. She hadn't thought of Fong Luo at all. Until noon today, when their room expired and they had just checked out, the weather suddenly turned scorching hot, shooting straight up to 70 degrees Celsius. Su Qingqing and her mother stood at the hotel entrance, hopping around from the heat. They stripped down until only their underwear was left, but it still didn't help. Only then did they think to call Fong Luo. Qingqing, when is Fong Luo coming? Mom's feet are blistered from the heat. On the other end of the line, Li Dongmei was wailing. Listening to this, Fong Luo felt delighted inside. You damn bitch, now you know how to yelp? In my previous life, I braved the heat and zombies to find food for you. Not only were you ungrateful, you thought it wasn't enough and killed me. You even smashed open my head and stole my ability core crystal. Now it's your turn to taste what it's like to be scorched by the heat. Can't take it anymore? Don't you have hands of your own? Figure it out yourself. Fong Luo took a bite of steaming hot beef and answered perfunctorily. Figure it out myself? Su Qingqing froze for a moment, then realized what Fong Luo meant. She immediately said in a resentful tone, Brother Fong Luo, don't joke around. For some reason, it suddenly got so hot here. So hot. Fong Luo wiped away the sweat brought on by the spicy hot pot and nodded. It is a little hot indeed. I'm sweating too. Brother Fong Luo, come pick me up quickly. I can't, I'm busy right now. Can't you just come back by yourself? But, Brother Fong Luo, my ID card and passport are still with you. Su Qingqing was parched and dry-mouthed now, and her originally soft, affected sweet voice now sounded like she'd stuffed a rag in her mouth. She had planned to buy water, but the water in nearby shops had already been snapped up, leaving only some high-end red wine, which she couldn't afford at all. Is that so? If you hadn't mentioned it, I would have forgotten. But I'm in the country right now, I can't get over there. How about you come here and get them? Brother Fong Luo, stop joking. How am I supposed to go? Su Qingqing felt that Fong Luo was messing with her and sounded somewhat aggrieved. But she was roasting in the heat, and the ground beneath her feet was already soaked. In this unfamiliar place, the only person she could rely on was Fong Luo, so she didn't dare throw a tantrum at all. So she pitifully said again, Brother Fong Luo, how about this? You help me extend the room for a few more days, and once the heat wave passes, I'll come to your house right away. Her meaning was very obvious. You pay my room fee, and I'll repay you with my body. But would Fong Luo care about a woman who had caused his death in his previous life? Please, with his hundreds of billions worth of supplies, what kind of woman couldn't he find? What did you say? My signal is bad. I can't hear you. Fong Luo hung up directly. After that, Su Qingqing called again several times, but Fong Luo ignored her all the same and kept calmly eating his hot pot. He let the phone ring nonstop. The more urgent the ringtone, the more appetizingly he ate. Later, Su Qingqing stopped calling and switched to sending messages after a while. Brother Fong Luo, my mom fainted. Please come save my mom. She even attached a photo of Li Dongmei lying unconscious on the ground like a dead pig. Looks like it really is a bit hot. She's practically smoking. Fong Luo smacked his lips, feeling incomparably pleased. He picked up a piece of meat and offered it to Dianmu. This beef is so fragrant. Eating it makes your whole body feel warm. Dianmu, do you want to ward off the chill too? He felt not the slightest pity for Li Dongmei's situation and even thought she was dying too slowly. Damn it. She hurt me like that in my previous life. Fong Luo kept eating his hot pot. As time passed, Su Qingqing grew more and more panicked. Her mother had collapsed. She was in a strange place. She was completely at a loss. Only now did she remember that she had always relied on Fong Luo to live so comfortably. Her bags, clothes, and phone had all been bought by Fong Luo. She wasn't stupid and knew that Fong Luo was deliberately taking revenge on her. She now regretted it deeply. She never should have kept Fong Luo dangling like that. Su Qingqing tirelessly kept sending Fong Luo messages, trying to make him change his mind. Her words also became more and more suggestive. Brother Fong Luo, you don't have a girlfriend yet, right? I'm single now too. Brother Fong Luo, what kind of techniques do you like? Brother Fong Luo, even though it's my first time, I'm a fast learner. I can learn any technique right away. Brother Fong Luo, what kind of animals do you like, kittens or puppies? Su Qingqing kept sending Fong Luo messages, each one more shameless than the last. Now, she was the one acting like Fong Luo's simp, and Fong Luo found it a little amusing. Su Qingqing probably never would have imagined that one day she would beg him like this. But in the face of Su Qingqing's pleas, Fong Luo felt not the slightest bit of pity. She brought it on herself. She deserved all of this. After finishing the hot pot, Fong Luo looked out the window again to check the situation outside. Today was Monday, and there were originally many people working near the warehouse. But now there wasn't a single person in sight outside. They had all found shady spots to hide in. It was too hot. The phone showed that today's outdoor temperature had already reached 65 degrees Celsius. In this kind of heat, staying outside for just a few minutes could cause heat stroke or even death. Even if you stayed at home and turned the air conditioner down to 16 degrees Celsius, the indoor temperature still wouldn't drop below 50 degrees Celsius. Moreover, ordinary air conditioners running continuously in such extreme conditions wouldn't take long to break down. By contrast, Fong Luo's cold storage used advanced professional refrigeration equipment. Compared with cold storage facilities of the same size, it had fully 3 times as much equipment, and the walls had also been fitted with special materials. Right now, the indoor temperature was only 10 degrees Celsius, with no feeling of heat at all. It was even a bit cold, enough to need a jacket. Fong Luo lay comfortably on an 800,000 yuan sofa, with a PS5 connected to a 100-inch big screen TV. Out of boredom, he found a game to play. Nuking Los Santos flat was pretty good. Time passed until the early hours of the morning. Fong Luo finally felt a little sleepy and prepared to shower and go to sleep. When he came to the pre-built bathroom, he took a few buckets of water out of his space and poured them into the bathtub. This bathtub came with a massage function and was something Fong Luo had picked up from a mall warehouse. He'd heard it was a limited edition that sold for hundreds of thousands. Sure enough, it was comfortable to lie in. However, compared with a real person massage, it still fell a bit short. When the time came, he'd hire a real person to give him a massage. Fong Luo set a bunch of imported grapes beside him, then soaked in the tub while eating grapes. That was what you called living in comfort. Thinking back to his previous life, he had been hot as a dog. Lying in the large bathtub, Fong Luo used his phone to check the real-time updates online. After more than half a day had passed, the world had begun to change. Many trees had started to wither and turn yellow. The water level had also begun to drop, and some old equipment had gradually started to malfunction and be scrapped. Damn, my home's electrical box is old. The power went out, and now even the air conditioner can't be used. What's that compared to mine? Hundreds of rats came into my house to escape the heat. Help. Rats are still better than centipedes and cockroaches, okay? I'm the one who really needs help. Help. The ambulances have been blaring all day today. Looks like a lot of people got heat stroke. The environment is too harsh, and many elderly people already couldn't pull through because of the high temperatures. But most people still didn't sense any danger. They were still talking big online like usual, and some even hoped the heat would continue. However, Fong Luo knew this was only the calm before the storm. Because the situation wasn't especially dire yet. People still had water, electricity, and food at home. But in a few days, when the water and power were cut off and there was no food left at home, they wouldn't be this optimistic anymore. At that point, the world would fall completely into chaos. No one would care about laws or order, because in the face of survival, those things were utterly worthless. And besides, viruses would break out across the world. The zombie virus and the evolution virus. Either of these two viruses would deal a fatal blow to human society. The zombie virus. Once infected, living creatures would become bloodthirsty, knowing only how to attack and destroy. As for the evolution virus, although it wouldn't make people lose their reason, it would grant humans immense power. Don't think that's a good thing. After gaining power, would people honestly behave themselves and obey the law? For example, the fat woman and the brat Fong Luo met when rescuing Dianmu. Even a child only a few years old displayed a violent side in peaceful times. How much worse would adults in the chaotic apocalypse be? Those violent loan sharks who beat and kicked people even in peacetime, and even violated women's will. What would they do after the apocalypse? After obtaining great power, would their first thought really be to protect the weak? No, they would only oppress the weak even more unscrupulously. The number of people who die at their hands would be no fewer than those who die at the hands of zombies. And there were quite a lot of such people. Even Fong Luo could hardly guarantee whether he himself would become that kind of person. Would he bully men and dominate women? But that also didn't mean Fong Luo shouldn't seek power. In the apocalypse, this was the only way to survive. He had to gain power. Power itself wasn't wrong. What was wrong was the person who wielded it. Fong Luo only wanted to stay alive. Although he already possessed spatial powers, he still needed to strengthen himself. He couldn't just drift along waiting to die. Espers were divided into levels 1 to 10. The higher the level, the stronger the power. In his previous life, Fong Luo was only an ordinary level, 1 Esper, among the weakest group. His combat power was no different from that of an ordinary person, because spatial powers in the early stage had no combat methods at all, only a storage space. Unlike powers such as fire or electricity, which had strong combat ability from the very beginning. There were 2 ways to increase one's power level. First, absorb more evolution virus. But evolution virus was incomparably scarce. You might not find even 1 person out of 100 who could get hold of it. Second, kill zombies or other espers and absorb the enhancement crystals in their brains. This was the main way to increase strength. Unfortunately, in his previous life Fong Luo had no ability to kill zombies, nor could he find more evolution virus. In the end, he couldn't even defeat Su Qingqing's family. But since he had been reborn, Fong Luo would definitely not repeat the same mistakes. He would collect a batch of evolution virus in advance and rapidly increase his strength. Moreover, in this life Dianmu was by his side and still hadn't obtained the evolution virus. Right now it was just an ordinary female cat. He had no idea where it had obtained the virus in his previous life. Fong Luo glanced at the female cat snoring on the sofa. He wanted to find this evolution virus. Only with powerful abilities could he deal with enemies and powerful zombies, and only then could he protect himself. Having made up his mind, Fong Luo immediately began making a plan. Fong Luo remembered that in his previous life, the zombie virus broke out on the night of the 5th day of the apocalypse. So the evolution virus likely appeared around the same time. Fong Luo first took out a map of Luo City and checked the location where he had been infected with the virus in his previous life, as well as the range where Dianmu might have been active in his previous life. In the end, he determined the approximate area. In the blink of an eye, it was the 5th day of the apocalypse. These past few days, Fong Luo had stayed in the cold storage every day because the virus had not yet descended, and going out early wouldn't be of much use. The weather outside was scorching hot, but he hadn't been idle either. Instead, he took out his VR equipment and played Resident Evil, getting an early feel for what it would be like to face zombies and building up some experience in fighting them.